evening and welcome to Biz1st in Focus. This evening my guest is a very interesting character. He's an educator, businessman, entrepreneur as well as a human rights activist. Known as Chelva, his full name is Kasi Viswanathan Chelva Kumar. A very good evening and welcome to Biz1st in Focus.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Nice to have you on board as well. Starting off, tell us a little bit about the work you do in the areas of a businessman, educator, entrepreneur, as well as a human rights activist.
Education has always been my passion. Went to college here at Peradeniya and then did my PhD at Caltech. Taught for a number of years after that. Business is by destiny. Ended up as a businessman. Worked in the industries of healthcare and defense. Now that I'm retired, I want to go back to my first passion, which is teaching.
What is the purpose of your visit to Sri Lanka this time around?
This time around, I came along with a colleague of mine from the Indian Institute of Technology to initiate and foster exchange between the two universities, between the two countries. There is some exchange, but being neighbors, we don't really make the best use of the resources that are available to each other country. And in particular, University of Jaffna Ariviyal Nagar campus engineering in Kilinochchi is a new institution, and they can benefit a lot from the collaboration with the IITs in India.
You said that we are not exploiting opportunities in our neighboring countries, like India, for an example. What is the reason behind this, Chelva?
I'm still trying to understand that myself. We've had some cultural scholarships where our students have been sent to India for undergraduate education and Indian cultural scholarship. That has been going on for a while. There are individual academics who collaborate, but again, given that we are just 15 miles across the Pork Strait, we could have a lot more collaboration. And specifically in this new university which is being built since 2013, so we got 3 batches at Kilinochchi. There's a similar experience that's taking place in India, the new IITs, which were founded in 2008, and they're doing exceptionally well and are willing to share their experiences with us. Actually, we met in Trinco 2 nights ago, and it was so revealing to see the expressions on the face of the Kilinochchi team when the IIT team was sharing their experiences.
Many trade unions in Sri Lanka does not like the intervention made by India, in particular with regard to the ETCA agreement that is to be signed with India, which is called the Economic Technology Cooperation Agreement in June this year, hopefully. What is the reason behind this? Why doesn't Sri Lankan trade unions or Sri Lankan professionals dislike Indian intervention? Chelva?
I don't think I'm qualified to give an intelligent answer on that because I don't have the facts, but I will definitely look at it and see if any of it is going to matter to our collaboration. But if any, all that I can say is we've had similar experiences with NAFTA in the United States, trade between the North American countries, but that's just a very quick answer. I don't have an in-depth answer to that question.
You speak of the education sector and the need to revive the education sector in Sri Lanka. What changes do you envisage as an individual who's been in the field for many years?
Education has always been a very strong suit of ours. I have personally benefited from that system. Many of us have benefited from that. However, the war has taken its toll on the education system, particularly in the north and east. And also, we were very good in training. Now I'm speaking about the universities, particularly Peradeniya. We used to be very good in training engineers who would go do their PhDs, like myself. But as far as sending the best qualified, best trained students to the field, that was an area that was lacking. But more recently, that is being addressed. The education system is being revamped and more research is being done. And research is all about collaboration. The more you collaborate with external agencies, the better you become on that.
Brain drain is a concern for respective governments who come into play in Sri Lanka. Individuals study in Sri Lanka and then go overseas. What is the reason behind this, Chelva?
My own experience, when I left in 1980, I was planning to come back, teach at Peradeniya, live in the sea quarters, which is allocated for the faculty. But I did not, mainly because of the civil war. I didn't feel it was safe for me to bring up my family, bring up my children in that kind of an environment. Economy, definitely, I mean, there is better economic opportunities outside and fewer economic opportunities at that time in Sri Lanka. But what I see happening now is that there are more and more economic opportunities here. We've seen this happening to India. People are, there is a reverse brain drain now. And I'm confident that with the changes we are seeing, hopefully there would be a similar situation that people, I mean, I'm coming back. I think people will come back when they are provided the correct environment where they can contribute and see the contribution take root and some good results come out of it.
Who says the Civil War made you migrate to the United States of America, Los Angeles, right now, where you're staying? 2009, the war ended. Why don't you consider, Chelva, coming back to Sri Lanka and giving something back to this resplendent island?
Just a minor clarification. I went to United States to study in 1980. At that time, there were rumblings, there were the dark clouds in the horizon, but war was not in full swing. But it is because of the war that I did not come back. I was in Sri Lanka in July 1983. I was fortunate enough, lucky enough to leave before the 23rd. 2009.
War is now over, 2009.
Yeah, so coming to 2009, yes, the intense killing, as I always say, the intense killings have stopped. But the fundamental issues underlying the causes of the war have not been addressed. I am really pleased to see the constitutional reform process that's taking place, and I truly believe that it is addressed in a meaningful way. Constitution of Ceylon had sections 29 and 30, which clearly protected the minority rights, which incidentally is the same sections in India, and the Indian Constitution still has that. In 1960s, late 60s, Kodiswaran challenged these sections, and when it went to Privy Council and came back for a trial, the whole constitution was thrown out, and we had the new constitution of 1972, which does not have the minority rights. So, yes, the killings have stopped, intense killings have stopped, which is very important. At the same time, a more fundamental change has to take place, and I think it is beginning to take place. Until that is done, I don't think people can truly feel safe, whether it is Sinhalese, Tamils or Muslims.
You made 3 visits to Sri Lanka following the end of the war in the year 2009. Each visit you took to the country, did you see change?
I think I'm seeing changes, yes.
Following the 8th of January last year, what is Sri Lanka going to be looking like in the next few years?
What we all hope Sri Lanka will look like is a country where anyone, regardless of their beliefs, birth, persuasions, could walk with freedom and be confident that justice will be served, regardless of what. So that goes back to the Constitution. Economic prosperity, a lot of times economic prosperity answers. When the pie is small, we all become each other's enemy. When the pie is large, we are everybody's brother. So to expand the pie, to expand the economic development, and I'm hopeful. I think it's still early in a national scale, and we have seen some improvements, but we have a long way to go before, concrete results can be put in place.
You are definitely a part of the Tamil diaspora outside the country. 8th of January 2015. Was it a welcoming note for an individual like you?
Interestingly, Tamil diaspora is not a monolithic entity. Tamil diaspora has multiple arms. You have those who still believe Prabharan is alive, to those who believe that everything has been solved and everybody is happy. So it varies depending on what persuasion each person has and what group they belong to. I wouldn't use the word relief, but I think hope. There is definitely a lot of hope that under the present regime, fundamental issues would be addressed, economic development would be achieved, and there would be some kind of justice.
Trevor, you acted as a shuttle diplomat in the Sri Lankan Civil War during the 80s and 90s, the same decade in which you sought refuge in another country, putting aside Sri Lanka. What was your role like as a shuttle diplomat?
I think a shuttle diplomat is a dispensable, naive asset, which I did not know at that time. I truly believed by setting up a channel or helping set up a channel of communication between the then leader, Mr. Jayawardena, and Prabharan would result in some diplomatic communications and the cessation of the war. So that's the reason that I put my life at risk and went through several times between the two of them.
Were you successful?
It's like the intelligence community says, CIA says that men of CIA, men and women of CIA, they say that their successes are buried and their failures are plastered all over the wall. I don't really know whether there was actually a red line, a phone setup, but I believe something was done. So the tactically, yes, it was successful. Strategically, no, because the war did not end.
You spoke of the CIA. I am to understand that you have worked with U.S. defense agencies as well. What was your work like with them?
So two things. One is I mentioned the CIA as an observer, and I did not work with them. That's just a disclaimer. The company I was the president of, EPR Technologies Incorporated, develops photovoltaic, does photovoltaic research, development and manufacturing of cells, photovoltaic cells, which are used in night vision technology.
And night vision technology a few years ago was very famous for one reason: the invasion of the US forces to Pakistan and the killing of Osama bin Laden. I am again made to believe that your chips did some sort of work there. Tell us a little bit about that as well.
The technology that was developed in our company, which is mercury cadmium telluride, which is used in Black Hawk helicopters, Abram tanks, and a series of other heavy equipment. Black Hawk was able to, the attackers went on Black Hawk, and they had to approach on stealth mode because it was very close to the military compound, the Pakistani military compound. So the entire flight was at night without any visible light and through a ravine, and that was only made possible through night vision. Our company and our founder contributed very significantly to the development of that technology.
Is it a successful venture as far as your organization is concerned?
As far as the EPIR is concerned, we did not supply those particular chips.
So you directly work with the CIA?
No.
Moving on, your
Good
work.
try.
Moving on, your work with regard to a software startup in the early 90s, which is called the ReproNet. How has this successfully came into being in the early 90s?
So early 90s were the heydays of Silicon Valley, and we were bit by that bug. I had come back from my tour of duty in Sri Lanka with not knowing whether it worked or not, and I decided to leave the academia. I was a professor, leave the academia and start a software company. We cut a deal, signed on a single sheet of paper, 50-50 ownership, and the software itself is high-speed communication of engineering drawings and remote plotter control. What it does is it cuts down the construction interruption during major revisions of construction designs, and that saves a lot of money. If it's a $100 million project, 1 day's interest is $50,000. So if you can save 3 days, you saved $150,000. So it was a great success. Interestingly and paradoxically, success can lead to failure because it was a great success. The person who invested the money wanted a higher ownership stake on the company. I thought that's not the agreement, so we went to court, and it was a pretty nasty process after that.
Starting up a company, Mr. Shelva, how difficult is this task? Given your experience, you just mentioned success can turn out to be failure as well. How would you describe success and how would you describe failure in the eyes of a young entrepreneur?
In the eyes of the young entrepreneur, the fuel that drives all this is passion. And it's the passion that gets us to work day and night, to even sleep in the company, stay there long hours, produce. And there's an exhilaration that comes in seeing the results. But at the same time, it's wrought with challenges.
I want to interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
Passion alone gives you success, makes your dreams come true. Money is not important anymore. Is that what you're trying to say?
Money is of secondary importance. Passion, without the passion, any amount of money cannot really produce results. The passion is the fuel. It has to drive it. Will it take us to the end point? Not necessarily, because there are going to be you have the fuel, you have the vehicle, but you're going to have to navigate through all the obstacles in order to get to the end point.
What is your passion, Shelva?
Education.
You like to teach.
Yes.
How do you think Sri Lanka education system should change?
We need to provide better education at high schools. I think the A-level results, when we look at that, it has some disturbing elements. Overall, it's very good. So it has to start from that level. The place that teachers have in a society, we come from a society where teachers were held on a pedestal, but I see that being brought down. That needs to be brought back to the old glory. We need to become more applied. We always think of everyone becoming a doctor and an engineer. I think it's changing now with enterprise and all that. But it needs to be more in terms of technicians. I mean, real craftsmanship we can learn from the West.
What is the role of the private sector in bridging these gaps that you were talking about and moving forward? Does the private sector have a role at all in a country's education system?
The private sector definitely has a role. I mean, at the first level, collaboration with the educational institutions, whether it be schools, providing student projects, encouraging students to get involved in various things, getting involved with joint research in the university, providing them ideas that are relevant to the industry to do their research. And philanthropy. I feel that in the East, we don't have the same level of philanthropy that we have in the West. In the West, we have more foundations, more philanthropic institutions set for various purposes, primarily education and healthcare. So those could be the ways.
For a young entrepreneur who is watching this program this evening on a Tuesday night at 9:30 p.m. on TV1, what is your advice?
Follow your passion. As President Roosevelt said, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Just move on boldly. We will fall down, get up, brush yourself, and keep moving.
Where do you see yourself in the next few years as far as India-Sri Lanka relationship is concerned in the sphere of education?
I see myself as a facilitator. I think if I can help the process we have started this week take root, and India and Sri Lanka have a meaningful, mutually respectful, and I see a lot of respect for Sri Lanka from India. My colleagues always speak highly of Sri Lanka. Mutually respectful, productive collaboration in higher education, then I would consider that to be a great success.
Next 5 years, will I see Kasi Viswanathan Chelvakumar settling down in this resplendent island, where he learnt his basics, where he learnt his ABC.
Horace Walpole coined the word serendipity based on the island of Serendip. My life has been governed by serendipity. So serendipity is something I cannot predict. I wish I could. And I'm looking forward to spending definitely a great deal of time in Sri Lanka.
Ambition is a path to success. Persistence is a vehicle you arrive in. Shalva said a few quotes. I thought I'm going to finish this off this evening, this program as well, with a quote. Ambition is a path to success. Persistence is a vehicle you arrive in. You have to have ambition, but without persistence, you would not go anywhere. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, and thank you very much, Shalva, for joining us this evening on my show.
Pleasure.
Pleasure to have you on board today.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.